but can you talk us through, in hindsight now, the emotion after the game? I mean, we don't normally associate that with you publicly. That was a pretty amazing moment.
Oh, it was pretty hot up here, had a bit of sweat. So Gold Coast is a bit warm at night at times, but I just think it's, we've been on the road now for a month, and there's curveballs. It's not daily curveballs that get thrown at you now. It's they're by the hour, and so whether it's us or the Giants, I think you've got to really take your hat off to both playing groups and staff. Importantly, that the win was obviously important, but regardless of the win, that some of the challenges that the clubs are overcoming on a daily basis is a real credit to the people involved in both organisations, and it's they just keep on mounting.
How's everyone holding up in general, John? I mean, I think we saw, as we touched on, the emotion, but what's going on behind the scenes to keep everyone on track and, I guess, mentally well?
No, I mean, let's not make too big a deal of it. I mean, it was a terrific win. It's a real there are challenges that are there that you just have to overcome, and everyone's obviously away from families, and we're conscious of the people back home doing it pretty tough as well in lockdown, and it doesn't look as though there's a really end in sight in the near future down there as well. So there's challenges everywhere in the industry at the moment. So we need to keep being mindful of supporting the people that we love back home, and hopefully trying to find a resolution with families as soon as we can. But also understand that there's football to be played. I still think it's interesting when there's commentary on the football games alone, on the style of play or this or that, and I think everyone has to understand that players aren't robots. There's going to be ups and downs during courses of games in a normal season, let alone what's unfolding before us at the moment. So there's always got to be a bit of a tempering of what's going on, I think, just to understand some of the challenges that are going on that are quite unusual.
John, how's Callum, Harry and Colin doing after having to pull out the other night?
They're going okay. Obviously, they're in isolation. It's not far from ideal. Those guys, and understand too, it's also staff. I mean, I keep on reiterating that gets lost in this a fair bit, but it's our staff as well. We've got 4 players and 4 staff that they're in isolation, that confined to a hotel room. So it's far from ideal, but they've got some exercise equipment to try and keep them mentally sharp, physically sharp, and also mentally sharp as well. That's really important to be able to get in a routine. Our head fitness guy is one of those guys caught up in this, and he's working involved in that in isolation to be able to keep them in a bit of a routine as much as they can. So certainly not ideal, but they're able to keep their spirits up, which is good.
John, you spoke after the game about not having any fitness staff really, with them having to isolate. What's the club able to do around that to make sure you've got someone there on the weekend? Calling in anyone from other clubs or anything like that?
We're working through that at the moment. We called someone we knew on the Gold Coast here on the weekend, and we're not sure what, it's the week-to-week stuff as well. It's the gym, supervision of gym programs. It's just the monitoring of training loads and all the things that you take for granted, I guess, when you've got fitness staff and conditioning staff to look after your team. So that's not available to us at the moment, so we're doing our best. There's a lot of people doing a lot more jobs and crossing over and doing a hell of a lot of work to try and keep things going.
And probably an interesting one for the fitness staff this week would be how James Rowbottom and Dylan Stevens have pulled up after playing their 2 matches in 2 days. So how are they?
Yeah, it'd be interesting for the fitness staff if they were here, so if they could see them. But unfortunately, they're obviously doing it pretty hard. But I mean, we talk to them and make sure they recover as good as they can. They did a magnificent job to be able to come in and on a short notice and contribute and be able to help the game go. I mean, that's what ultimately what happened, was that these players jumped up, put their hand up, and jumped into the game and allowed the game to keep rolling.
And there was some pretty interesting footage of you. It seemed like you were breaking the news to the team about the insight into what was going on there?
Just told them what it was. Just said these guys are out and these guys are in. So and we've got to make sure we make the most of it. Really, just it was just a pretty quick discussion point before the players went out on the ground. So it's just what it was. Our players have generally got a really good attitude with some of the hurdles that they overcome on a daily basis. So they take it in the right spirit. They embrace those challenges that come up and deal with it. They're just a really good group, which I'm really proud to be a part of.
You touched on the families and partners a little bit earlier. Can you give us a bit of an update on where that's at? And we hear that you're confident that it might happen by the end of the week. Is that what's happening? Is that actually the case?
Well, we're hopeful. I mean, but it's out of our hands, and so we just don't know. Nothing's been locked in yet. We're talking to the families. Obviously we've been away for a month, and still a fair bit of time to go. So, but we just don't know. Nothing's been locked in. Nothing's been confirmed as we sit here today.
You blokes really stood up on Sunday night in response to the slow start, namely George Stewart, who I think had his best game of the year. How have you seen his season so far, and how did you see his game on Sunday night?
Yeah, he was really hard and clean around the contest, and on those conditions in particular. And to the Giants' credit, their first half they were fantastic. They're a fierce contested ball team. They really go hard in the contest, and we were found wanting in that part of the game in the first half, and then the second half we were able to get it going a bit. And George was a massive part of that. Luke Parker, Josh Kennedy, those guys around the midfield were important. George has spent some time down back. He's also spent some time in the midfield, so he's got some great flexibility.
Do you think this Swans' good position at this start of the year is because of that good blend of the young bodies, which have gotten most of the attention throughout the year, but also the old heads stepping up when it counts, as they did on Sunday?
It's always a combination of weight and numbers. That's what we're always after, whether they're old, young, or otherwise. It's a matter of everyone contributing when they get the opportunity, and not dropping their bundle when things aren't going our way, which was great to see from the weekend's game. Was there was obviously some real challenges in that first half. We weren't winning the contest. We were off our game a bit. The Giants were really good in the pressure stakes. Their pressure was through the roof. But we got some important goals just before half time, which got us back in it, and then the momentum carried through into the second half. And that took a combination of our experienced leaders. Our leaders have been fantastic the whole way through, and our younger guys also with a bit of enthusiasm and doing their thing, which it's always a combination of both.
John, with your isolation trio and then not being able to obviously take part in full training, what impact will that have in terms of for their availability once they, get out of isolation, having lost that sort of week of work?
Oh, look, it's hard to predict at the moment. I mean, it's very, very hard to look into the future and read what happens when they get out. It's almost impossible, other than the fact that we're confident that they'll be able to do as much as they can in a strength, which is important. They need to keep their strength programs going, even though they're in their rooms, and then we're still confident that when they get out they'll have enough preparation for that next game. So, but once again, we won't put them at risk. We'll see how the week goes.
Does the circumstances of the adversity you guys are going through, especially on Sunday, can it sort of have an uplifting and galvanising effect on the team, in the sense that nothing can really stop you in terms of the hurdles that are placed in front of you?
Well, the approach that we've taken is to just get on with it, and we don't spend too much time talking about the what we haven't got, because if we spend too much time in that space, we end up a bit flat. So we talk about some of the opportunities that these challenges present, and our players are fantastic at that, and they switch on to the footy stuff when's required, and keep themselves present. And that's really important, is to be able to stay in the moment as much as you can and not use too much energy in things outside of your control. There's so much stuff that's outside of your control in these environments that you can get caught up in that. And our players, they were good at it last year as well. You know, we only won 5 games last year, but I was really proud of our players' ability to be able to get over the hurdles last year as well, whether they're injuries or on the road for an extended period of time without family. Our players got through that period really well, and so I'm really confident that our playing group can be really tight, you know, at this back end of the year. That's not to say that people, as players and staff, always have their ups and downs. That's just part of it, and sometimes there's good days and sometimes there's not so good days, and you've just got to understand that, as I said earlier, you're not dealing with robots, you're dealing with humans, and you need to understand that different people at different times will be feeling a bit differently as well.
What do you make of the opposition on the weekend in Fremantle, given that they got the victory over the Swans in the first half of the year?
Yeah, that went down to the wire. It was only a kick in it at the end, so that was a really tight game over in Perth. We know that Freo are a really good, strong team. You know, they got over the top of us just in the last few minutes over there, and we're looking forward to that challenge again this week. It's just another one that presents itself.
John, how important is the top 4 to you? Obviously, we all know that it's a double chance, but what does it mean to you sitting here right here and now? How much do you want that berth if you're going to be a serious challenger?
I've said this many times, and I'll keep saying it, is that I live in the moment. Our players live in the moment. Our staff live in the moment. We don't project too far ahead, and we use our energies on a day-to-day basis. As soon as you start to project too far forward, you can sort of, you know, either lose focus on what you're really doing on a daily basis, whether that's in team meetings, in reviews, in previews, in just training, or just switching off and enjoying yourself. And that's a really important part of it as well, just having time to down tools. So if we get all the processes right, that tends to take care of itself. So, you know, I don't spend a lot of time in that space.
On the injury front, do you expect getting players back? Sam Reid, Braden Campbell, and maybe Logan McDonald coming in from the reserves?
Yeah, we've, that'd be, you know, they're sort of getting towards that stage at the moment. Sam's played a couple of games. We'll be talking about this week. I mean, a bit of it depends upon training, who results in that. We're still yet to have a reserves game locked in. A bit unfortunate we're not allowed to play our players with anyone else up here. So we're trying to work out what we do in that regard, because we have a bye this week. So we're trying to work through that with some players that are coming back from injury. So we're still yet to confirm what we're doing with some of those guys at the lower levels this week. Reedy's played a couple of games. Braden Campbell's now just got a run under his belt. We'd like to keep him going. Chad Warner's probably not far away from playing. Lewis Melican's a bit the same. He's probably due for a game as well. So we'd like to be able to give those guys a game if we can somehow this week.
Trying to get a scratch match, maybe sort of composite teams with Queensland.
Yes, yeah, we're trying at the moment. We're not having much luck, so we're just we're trying to work through that as we speak.
How did Lance pull up from the weekend? I guess having 7 days off going to the next game, probably helping him get through.
Yeah, he pulled up well. I think he certainly had a terrific second half. It was a big part in what we're able to do in that second half. He's pulled up really well, so which is great. You know, we're hopeful that he continues to pull up well as he has been.